There is a legend that the instant the Duke Leto Atreides died, a meteor streaked across the skies above his ancestral palace on Caladan. From Introduction to a Child's History of Muad'Dib by the Princess Irulan. Welcome to Reading Dune, a podcast where we read Dune by Frank Herbert and talk about it. If you're a Fremen or a first-time reader, like Evan, this podcast is for you. My name is Caleb Pauls. Whoa. Can you say that again?
And I'm Evan Diaz.
Together, we're going to read some Dune.
Yeah, we are. Something weird happened?
That was really weird. Yeah, it like glitched on my end. I don't know if it glitched. Did it glitch on your end?
No.
Oh. Well, we'll see what the recording says later.
We roll with it. We roll with it here at Reading Dune.
Yeah, but you sounded like a robot.
Bleep. I am Evan Diaz. Bleep.
Yes, that's exactly what you sounded like. I was like, whoa, I can't use that.
I'm going to go back and watch this one just to hear my cool Matrix sound that I made.
Well, you only have to watch a minute of it, so it's good.
Right. Fantastic.
Well, yeah, also, for people listening on Spotify or on Apple Podcasts, you can watch us on YouTube. And if you're watching on YouTube and you missed something or are driving, you can hit us up on Spotify and Apple Podcasts.
Yep.
We really appreciate it. On YouTube, you could subscribe, hit that like button. On Apple Podcasts, a good rate and review doesn't hurt anybody. We've had some 1 stars. People don't like us. So a 5-star would be great.
Really? People are like trolling through Apple Podcasts to give people 1 stars? Awful. Terrible job. Disgusting podcast. Calm down.
Their audio sucks. They should do a better job.
I'm so angry.
They're like Sardaukar or like Harkonnens, just
Yeah, stupid. Oh, also a note on watching us on YouTube. If you've been listening, patiently hearing our voices, and you don't want to know what our faces look like, please just don't go on YouTube. In fact, I had this thought of, okay, I'm totally not talking about Dune right now, but I had this thought of listening to a new podcast and drawing what I think the people's like faces should look like,
right,
and then going and like sending it to them and finding out what their faces actually look like. Because 10 out of 10 times I'm surprised at what podcasters actually look like. You know what I mean?
So I guess you can't tell what people look like by just hearing their voice.
No, especially when, like people that do podcasts are like, welcome to the new episode of blah, 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 and they have their sexy podcast voice on, and they get real close to the mic and do the voice like this. I am blah, blah, blah. And then you see their face and you're like, whoa, you're a dweeb. You don't sound like...
Who's the guy that does this? Like Guy Raz does that from like How I Built This. Like I have no idea what he looks like. Or yeah, There's a couple others, these big ones, like This American Life. I'm just throwing out podcast names, but like, yeah, you see their face and you're like, that's what they look like?
Right. The biggest one for me, okay, Deconstructionist got me. I did not expect their faces to look like what they looked like. And also, JJ Peterson from the Storybrand podcast.
Yeah, didn't see that one coming.
He looks like that at all. Not that it was bad, but I was like, whoa, that's JJ. That's crazy. You know what I mean?
But I wasn't picturing that one in my head.
Right.
So, yeah.
Anyway,
so if you don't want to know what you look like, just don't come on there. But you have gotten people, Evan, by that comment. They'll listen on Spotify or podcast, and they'll be like, wait, Evan told me not to, so I'm going to.
Oh, yeah, I guess. Yeah, that'll probably happen. But hey, I would love to see some imaginative fan art. that would be fun.
All right, you can send it to readingdune@gmail.com.
Yes.
And that'd be great.
Yeah, fantastic.
All right, 5 minutes in. Let's start.
Oh my gosh, we just spent 5. Okay, Arrakis.
All right,
let's go.
So, Attack on Arrakeen.
You read Dune here, I promise.
Attack on Arrakeen has happened. Yui let down the shields. and ships have poured in. And this chapter starts with our lovely Baron Vladimir Harkonnen,
Ugh.
which at this point I'm just imagining a giant baby,
Yeah.
like a 8-foot tall baby.
But like a big baby. You know when you see your friend's baby and you're like, there's at least 50 rolls happening on this baby.
That's exactly
But
it.
like,
oh, it's so scary just to think about. Okay.
okay.
All right. So our Baron stands at the viewport of his grounded lighter he was using as a command post. So he's still in his ship. He's not staying.
Right.
He doesn't want to go into the castle. He wants to get this over with. He wants to go back home to his lovely polluted Gaiety Prime where he can sit in acid baths all day long.
Because he's a giant baby.
Because he's a giant baby. At the port, he saw the flame-lighted Knight of Arakeen. His attention was focused on the distant shield wall, where his secret weapon was doing its work. Explosive artillery.
Oh.
So usually artillery isn't used because of shields, because if they like interact, they'll blow up like a nuclear explosion. So they don't want to do that.
I thought that was just laser guns.
Well, I think just in artillery in general, they've kind of like moved away from that type of thing. And explosives are pounding into the shield wall, and they do that to seal off any of the Duke's men who ran to the caves for safety. So it's just a big way of killing a bunch of people.
Hmm.
All right. So, yes. The Baron could feel the distant chomping, a drumbeat carried to him through the ship's metal. Brump, brump, then brum, bum, bum. How'd I do? Is that good?
That was pretty good. I think you're getting called out by our friend Sahaya Dooney for having a raspy podcast voice right now.
Well, I mean, you said something at the beginning about podcast voice, so I'm trying my best.
Gonna sound like? Anyway, the giant baby and chomping.
Right. It was predictable the Duke's men would run for these caves, and the Emperor will appreciate my cleverness in preserving the lives of our mutual force. He adjusted the little suspenders that guarded his fat body against the pool of gravity.
Oh, he's so gross.
A smile creased his mouth, pulled at the lines of his jowls. Ugh. And here's a line that I think perfectly describes the Baron. The whole universe sat there, open to the man who could make the right decision. He views this as the right decision, right? Whoever's expendable to take care of them, to move on. Who can make that hard decision? The Baron is that person. And the whole universe is opening up to that person. He takes it by force.
Right. It's like the right decision to further your agenda. It's not the right decision, you know? It's not.
And not by the Atreides standards.
Right. It's not the righteous decision. It's just make the right moves to gain more power. It's nasty, giant baby.
This is where he says, the uncertain rabbits had to be exposed and made a run for their burrows. How else could you control them and breed them? That's the way he pictures people. The way like a hunter or a carnivore, right, would stir something up to get all of them to move so you can see where they are, so you can round them up. Something about that, just the inhumanity of it, I guess. How he pictures life in general. And then he thinks, the day hums sweetly when you have enough bees working for you. Right? Because he pictures his fighting men like bees. Expendable, small. Sure, they die, but they kill, they sting people. Right. It's like, ugh. So he's having these.
I'm just picturing, like, this whole scene, I'm just picturing him, like, sitting in this are like standing, whatever he does, giant baby, in this ship, just like just like thinking of these things and like chuckling to himself. Like, what a jackass. Anyway.
The door opens and he catches the reflection in the window he was looking out of, and in walks Piter, followed by the captain of the Baron's personal guard. I'm not going to name him here because he's going to die by the end of the chapter. Spoilers.
And his name's complicated, so why waste time?
So why waste time? Mispronouncing it. The Baron turned. Piter touched the finger to his forelock in a mocking salute. Good news, my lord. The Sardaukar have brought in the Duke. Of course they have, the Baron rumbled. So in this interaction, I think just in general, last chapter and this chapter, there's a lot of like obvious things. Like, who else would bring the Duke in? Is this the Duke? Yeah, the guy laying on the ground? Yes, that's the Duke. Like, come on. And especially between Piter, he's like kind of egg on the Duke whenever he can, or the Baron whenever he can. Yes. Now, do you remember what happened between Piter and Jessica? Maybe it was like 2 chapters ago.
No.
Because originally in chapter 2, right, Piter says he wants Jessica for experimentation for something.
Yeah. I remember now.
And then when Jessica and the Baron met, she was gagged and drugged as she was coming out of it. And Baron says he wishes to prove a thing. Like, Piter doesn't want Jessica, he wants power.
Yeah.
And Piter can choose Jessica in exile or to become the duchy. Remember, I was having a hard time saying that word. Become the duchy of Arrakis, and he chose that. Well, there's a reason that the Baron wanted him to do this. The Baron thinks, soon I must remove him, talking about Piter. He's almost outlasted his usefulness, almost reached the point of positive danger to my person. First, though, he must make the people of Arrakis hate him. Then they will welcome my darling Fade, Rautha, as a savior. So the Baron is using Piter to manipulate the people so that he can come in and swoop in and save the day with Fade, which is why Fade was brought in on that plan all the way back in chapter 2.
Right.
Plans within plans within plans.
Right. Okay, I have a question. Do you know, like, timeline wise where we're at? Because the last chapter, it was before Paul and Jessica got taken.
Yes.
Is this happening after I'm assuming this is happening after the conversation with Piter and Jessica and the Baron and all that junk, right?
Yes. Right.
Okay.
So they would have went to Jessica's room where she was. He would have seen her, had the conversation, saying he wishes he had a conversation with her. And then he leaves and then goes back to his lighter here where he is.
Okay. Cool.
Yeah, because there's a bunch of time jumps here. So technically this is happening like simultaneously as Jessica and Paul are getting on the Thopter.
Right. Cool.
But we have some things to take care of, the Baron does. First, we need to take care of the traitor. So the Baron asks, he says he must give the traitor his reward. Piter turns on one toe. Who turns on one toe? The evil guy. He motioned to the guard outside. A bit of black movement, and then in walked Yui. His motions were stiff and stringy. I told you he runs weird. The mustache drooped beside his purple lips. Only his old eyes seemed alive. Yui came to stop 3 paces into the room, obeying a motion from Piter, and stood there, staring across the open space at the Baron. Ah, Dr. Yui. Yui replies, my lord Harkonnen, you've given us the dear Duke, I hear. Yui says, my half of the bargain. The Baron looks at Piter. Like, what? What's he talking about? Piter nods. Oh, yeah, don't you remember? The Baron looked back at Yui. The letter of the bargain, eh? And I... He spat the words out. What was I to do in return? You remember quite well, my lord Harkonnen. And Yui allowed himself to think now, hearing the loud silence of the clocks in his mind. Tick, 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 tick. He had seen the subtle betrayals in the Baron's manner. Wanna, his beloved, was indeed dead, gone far beyond their reach. Otherwise, there'd still be a hold on the weak doctor. The Baron's manner showed there was no hold. It was ended. So now we know his answer.
That was like the least satisfying thing. You know?
What do you mean?
Well, like nothing. It's like, oh,
Yeah.
Yui, here's your reward. Nothing. You know?
I forgot about you.
Like I kind of wish they had like brought Wanna out and just like killed her. That would have been much more intriguing and enticing. But no, maybe that's the whole point. It's like he did all of this for absolutely nothing, for no reason at all.
None whatsoever. And I think, like I almost think that the Baron had no clue. He just told like Piter, find me a traitor.
You think? I thought he was being like coy and like
he could be coy, or he just was like, you are not worth remembering.
Oh God.
And like, Piter nods like, oh yes, remember this thing? Oh yeah, we did this thing.
That's so much worse.
And it's right. So the next thing the Baron asks is, do I have something to give you? I don't, you just do things for me. Yui, you promised to deliver my Wanna from her agony. The Baron nodded. Oh yes, now I remember. So I did. That was my promise. Anything, that's how we bent the Imperial conditioning. You couldn't endure seeing your Bene Gesserit witch grovel in Piter's pain amplifiers. Well, the Baron Vladimir Harkonnen always keeps his promises. I told you I'd free her from the agony and permit you to join her. So be it. He waved a hand at Piter. Piter's blue eyes took a glazed look. His movement was cat-like in its fluidity. The knife in his hand glistened like a claw as it flashed into Yui's back. The old man stiffened, never taking his attention from the Baron. So join her, the Baron spat. The big baby spat and salivated on him.
Yui stood.
Well, yeah. Otherwise, I'm just reading Dune. I gotta add these little things here. Yui stood swaying. His lips moved with careful precision, and his voice came in an oddly measured cadence. So Yui, in his last words, here he says, you think you defeated me? You think I did not know what I bought for my Wanna? He fell. No bending or softening. It was like a tree falling. So join her, the Baron repeated. But his words were like a weak echo. Ugh. Well, and thus ends the traitor Yui. Gone.
For nothing.
Yeah.
It's the worst.
Yeah, dead. But Yui's last words did something.
Yeah.
It filled the Baron with a sense of foreboding. What did he mean? What is going on? Right? There's this, what's happening?
Right. Now he's like, he planted this seed of uncertainty and
fear in the Baron.
And why did he do that? Let's be real. If he doesn't do anything, the Baron still thinks he has the top, I don't know, the edge,
Yeah.
right? Now he's like, oh, by the way, I have another move for you, so watch out. Like, if he doesn't say that,
Then he would be caught off guard by anything else that happened. Yeah, I don't know. Just it seems like in his moment of
he couldn't have just gone treacherously and just died.
yeah, I think he
He
was
had to, like-
trying to get some kind of retribution. You know, like I know that I can give him like a sense of insecurity and doubt, and maybe that'll mess him up. I don't know.
Yeah. All right. So now that the traitor is taken care of, we're on to the second thing that needs to happen. The Baron needs his match off with Duke Leto.
Mm-hmm.
Right? They've been exchanging nasty letters back and forth, calling each other names. They want to have, invoke Canley, fight 1-1, with a knife fight, Big Baby versus the Duke Leto. They want this, so of course the Baron's like pumped about this. Like, yes, I can't wait to lord over.
Right.
I've destroyed everything. All right. So he says, the Baron asked Yui, he did give us the Duke, right? Of course, as Piter says. Then get him in here. Piter glanced as the guard captain, who whirled to obey. The Baron looked down at Yui. From the way the man had fallen, you'd suspect oak in him instead of bones. I could never bring myself to trust a traitor, the Baron says. Not even a traitor I created.
The worst, dude.
And at that moment, the thumping stops, and a hushed stillness comes. Yet there was this feeling of doubt. What if the old fool the doctor meant? Of course, he probably knew what was happening to him by the end. But that bit about thinking he'd been defeated. What did he mean? In comes Duke Leto Atreides through the door. His arms were bound in chains. The eagle face was streaked with dirt. His uniform was torn, where someone had ripped off his insignia. There were tatters at his waist where the shield belt had been removed without first freeing from his uniform ties. The Duke's eyes held a glazed, insane look. The Duke is still very much drugged out of his mind at this point.
Yeah. He's tripping super hard right now.
Well, the Baron said. He hesitated, drawing in a deep breath. He knew he'd spoken too loudly. This moment, long envisioned, had lost some of its savor. Damn that cursed doctor through all eternity. Piter says, I believe the good Duke is drugged. That's how Yui caught him for us. Piter turned to the Duke. Aren't you drugged, my dear Duke? Leto, nothing. Could you imagine having that big moment and you're just like, bump, 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 nothing?
Yeah.
Just like, ugh. First, you thought Yui gives that, and then this moment. I feel like the Baron may be winning this fight on the planet, but he's definitely losing.
Right. It's not what he expected it to be. It's not this like sweet, awesome victory. It's
lost all of its drama. It's just missed expectations.
Yep.
All right. So now we get in the mind of Yui, where the voice feels far away. He can start feeling his body again, the dry taste of thirst whispering in its grit in his mouth. But the sounds were dull, hidden by a cottony blanket. He's under some heavy drugs.
Yeah.
The Baron asks Piter, because of course he can't talk to the Duke, so he might as well talk to Piter. What about the woman and the boy? Any word yet? Piter's tongue darted over his lips. You've heard something, the Baron snapped. What? Piter glanced at the guard captain, back to the Baron, like, should I tell him? This is going to be bad.
I'm in trouble.
The men who were sent to do the job, my lord, they've been found. Well, they report everything satisfactory? They're dead, my lord. Well, of course they are. What I want to know is, they were dead when found, my lord. The Baron's face went livid. And the woman? And the boy? No sign, my lord, but there was a worm. It came when the scene was being investigated. Perhaps it was as we wished, an accident. Possibly. We do not deal in possibilities, Piter. What about the missing doctor? Does that suggest anything to my mentat? One of the Duke's men obviously escaped in it, my lord. Killed our pilot and escaped. I think that's Idaho.
Yeah, I just got that.
Me too.
That's you were reading it.
I just got that too. Okay, cool.
That's smart.
It's funny. I've read this book maybe 4 or 5 times. I'm still catching things. I feel like I'm reading it all over again. This is so much fun. Which of the Duke's men? It was a clean, silent killing, my lord. Howitt, perhaps, or that Halleck one, possibly Idaho, or any top lieutenants. It could have been Halleck. It could have been Gurney. Gurney could have escaped. We don't know what happened to Gurney.
Right.
Cross our fingers. Possibilities. The Baron muttered.
Keep saying, possibly, like it's gonna help him.
Well, it's like, what did Kind say about possible? Like, we don't deal with hypotheticals on Arrakis. We only deal with possibilities.
Yeah.
Or we don't deal with possibilities. Something like that. Yeah.
Something like that. Something like that.
There's some quote like that. I'm waiting for somebody in the comments to say what that actual quote is. So like people in the comments are honest. If you want to watch live and if you're all cut up, please do. We'd love to hear from you.
Yeah.
Okay. Moving on. So, Piter says, the situation is in hand, my lord. Right? Yeah, we caught him. No, it'll be okay. It will be all right. Baron. No, it isn't. Where's that stupid planetologist? Where's that man Kynes? We word where to find him. He's been sent for, my lord. I don't like the way the Emperor's servant is helping us. The Baron muttered. So we know that Kynes has orders from the Emperor, so if anything goes wrong to get rid of the Atreides.
Right.
And possibly that's what happened with, the first time they went out with the worm. So do you think the Baron is like looking for, like he's kind of supposed to be helping, quote unquote, with this whole thing? So now the Baron wants to see Kynes to see, hey, what are you doing? How are you helping me?
Right. But we know that Kynes, at least it seems that Kynes has had a change of heart, a change of fealty, if you will, where he's like, actually, the Atreides are pretty dope. I'm going to go with them because they got it going on and the Harkonnens low-key kind of suck.
They don't low-key suck. They actually suck.
They high-key suck. Like, they suck in every way. At
least Jessica wants to, hold the trees in the conservatory in trust when they turn the planet green, The Harkonnens just want to burn all the trees.
Oh, dude.
Evan's pissed about burning trees.
I didn't even think about that. That's so heavy. Anyway,
there's just a lot of things you can just compare. All right, we're back in Leto's head. The words through the cottony blanket, but some of them burned in Leto's mind. Woman, boy, no sign. Paul and Jessica had escaped. What about the fate of Halleck and Idaho remained unknown. There's still hope. So in his drugged senses, he's kind of putting the pieces together.
Right.
So now the Baron moving on to the next thing. All right, at least where's his ducal signet ring? At least we have that, right? But nope, the finger is bare. Another thing we've missed. The Sardaukar say was not on him when he was taken, my lord, the guard captain said. You killed the doctor too soon, The Baron said. That was a mistake. You should have warned me, Piter. Straight to the blame game. Piter, it's your fault. You moved too precipitately for our good of our enterprise. He scowled.
Dude.
Possibilities.
You got that word good. Precipitately.
Yeah, thanks. I practiced in the mirror like 3 times before recording this.
I was scared of that one, man. I'd have never precipitately.
Precipitately. You have to say it just really fast and you're good.
Precipitately.
$5. You won't use it in a conversation tomorrow.
I'll do my best.
Okay, good. Let me know how it goes. That thought hung in the air like a sine wave in Leto's mind. Paul and Jessica have escaped. Paul and Jessica have escaped. Paul and Jessica have escaped. There was something else in his memory. A bargain. He could almost remember it. What's the thing he's missing?
Tooth.
He all remembered it now. A pill of poison gas shaped into a false tooth. Someone had told him to remember that tooth. He could feel it, the shape of it with his tongue. All he had to do was to bite sharply. Not yet. That someone had told him to wait until he was near the Baron. Who told him? He couldn't remember. So the Baron and Piter just waiting. Awkwardly. How long will he remain drugged like this? The big baby says. Perhaps another hour, my lord. Perhaps, the Baron muttered. Again, he turned to the night-blackened window. And what does the big baby want, Evan? What's he do while he waits?
I'm hungry.
He's hungry. If he's got to wait an hour, he might as well, get some grub.
Yeah. You think Duke Leto is just kind of sitting there tripping out, just like, kind of like, I don't know. I've seen some people.
Like just, Caleb. The closest experience, I guess, to what they're talking about is like when I had my wisdom teeth out.
Yeah.
And you're like out of it, but not out of it, but in it. And probably like a little bit before he's like, I don't think he ever gets to the point in this chapter where he's like out of it completely.
Right.
Which is the biggest grace.
Yeah.
You were going to say something.
Well, it's just like he's obviously like real drugged up, but he still never like says anything. And I think it doesn't say anything about the drug or his state necessarily, but his intelligence. He's enough to, even when he's like tripping super hard, to be like, okay, what's happening? The woman and the boy, that means they're okay. All right. They don't know where, but he's like on the outside, he's probably just like, like wobbly and, looking.
If only Yui would have drugged himself too. That would have been great.
Yeah.
But, alas.
Anyway.
But I do think there is something about him not saying anything that, like hanging out with Jessica and the Bene Gesserit, like training the patients.
Yeah.
Like, don't do anything until the move. And he only has one move, and that's a tooth. So while he's drugged, coming out of it for like an hour, the Baron gets a whole buffet. Gets wheeled out to him, and he just sits there and eats it. Just munching on it. That's the Baron. That fuzzy gray shape there, Leto thought. The shape danced back and forth, swaying with the movement of the room. And the room expanded and contracted. It grew brighter and darker. It folded into blackness and faded.
Yeah.
Time became
hard.
Yes.
That's.
I love this line here. This is how you know he's really tripping. Time became a sequence of layers for the Duke. He drifted up through them and down. I must wait.
He's like piecing together this like most tragic moment of his life, but he's also like, time is like layers, dude. oh man, I need to calm down. You know, like
I need to calm down.
oh, this is super trippy right now.
It's probably, that sine wave was probably a good, you go up and then down and
Right.
up and
Right.
down. And at the peak of it, it's like Paul and Jessica are alive. Okay, holy crap, I'm tripping balls. Come back up. Like, I mean, Yui probably gave him the good stuff. He wasn't messing around.
Hopefully.
So there was the table. Leto saw the table quite clearly, and a gross, fat man on the other side of the table. The remains of his meal in front of him. Leto felt himself sitting in a chair across the fat man. Felt the chains and straps that had held his tingling body in the chair, and he was aware that there had been a passage of time, but its length escaped him.
Oh, we all been there, Leto.
Okay, do you think that? So the Baron he's sitting down table. Did he like pull the Duke up to like sit with him as he eats?
Yeah.
Like across from him, like he doesn't leave him in a corner just waiting. He like
no. He's like chained up to a chair like a sad dinner guest. That's what
I'm picturing. Just like sitting, like, you're sitting across from the person you're going to dinner with, but one of them is just drugged out of their mind.
Yeah, exactly.
Waiting till he wakes up. Okay. So he could have he could have bitten down on his tooth and probably been okay. Like he would have been close enough. Like they were not socially distanced at this point. They're pretty close. They're within that 6 feet.
Right. I was kind of picturing before when they were talking about when Yui was talking about the tooth, I pictured like the Duke like laid out on something and like the Baron is like right on top of him, like examining,
Yeah.
But so then when he was sitting at a table, I was like, oh man, is that close enough? Like, how big is the table? Because these are like fancy people. They got big tables.
Who knows? Yeah. But yeah, okay. There's been a passage of time sitting at the table together. I believe he's coming around, Baron. A silky voice, that one. That one was Piter. Ugh. As Jessica would say, that voice kills. It's a killing. So I see, Piter. The rumbling basso. That's the Baron.
Basso.
You're the musical one in here.
Basso profundo.
Yeah, there we go.
Yeah.
Leto sensed increasing definition in his surroundings. The chair beneath him took a firmness. The bindings were sharper. He saw the Baron clearly now. Leto watched the movements of the man's hands, compulsively touching the edge of his plate. The handle of the spoon, a finger tracing the fold of the jowl. You just don't like the Baron's descriptions, do you, Evan? He's cringing. No. Sorry. For people listening, he's cringing this whole time.
Yeah, it's like Frank is describing his gross mannerisms in such a perfect way to make you just like cringe at everything about him, Like you just picture it. Can you just like picture somebody like sitting there and like nervously like touching everything in front of them? And it's like that's disturbing and just like weird,
So as he's doing that, the Baron can see that Leto is tracking his movements. He sees the hand moving. You can hear me, Duke Leto, the Baron said. I know you can hear me. I want to know where you were to find your concubine and the child you sired on her. No sign escaped Leto, but the words of wash of calmness through him. It's true then. They don't have Paul and Jessica. This is not a child's game we play, the Baron rumbled. You must know that. He leaned towards Leto, studying the face. It pained the Baron that this could not have been handled privately, just between them two. To have others see royalty in such straits, it sets a bad precedent. Like, I don't think the Baron wanted Leto drugged. He wanted to face him straight up, because he calls them royalty, him included. I don't know if he means, I don't think it's like royalty to the emperor, but definitely he imagines himself and probably the Landsraad Council
Right.
as royalty. Leto could feel his strength returning, and now the memory of the false tooth stood out in his mind like a steeple in a flat landscape. And this is where he remembers Yui. He knew it had to be Yui. Do you hear that noise, Duke Leto? The Baron asked. Leto grew conscious of the frog sound. The blurred mewling of someone's agony.
Mewling.
Mewling. We know what that word is. That popped up a couple chapters ago.
Yeah.
Woo. See, we are learning, Evan. I know it's hard, but
smart people.
We've come so far. This is where the Baron says, we caught one of your men disguised as Fremen. We penetrated his disguise. How? His eyes. He doesn't have the eyes.
Yep.
He says, I've lived on this planet, Shere Cousin. One does not spy on those ragged scum up in the desert. Tell me, did you buy their help? Did you send your woman and son to them? Leto felt fear tighten his chest. If Yui sent them into the desert fold, the search won't stop until they're found.
Ooh.
Come, the Baron said. We don't have much time and pain is quick. Please don't bring it to this, my dear Duke. And so then the Baron says, well, we're going to have Piter come in and make it excruciatingly painful, but I don't want that to happen. You're a royal person. I don't want to see you in pain. Just let us know what's going on. You'll die. You had an emergency plan, the Baron said. Where are your woman and the boy been sent? He looked at Leto's hand. Your ring is missing. Does the boy have it? The Baron looked up and stared into Leto's eyes. You don't answer, he said. Will force me to do a thing I don't want to do. Piter will use simple, direct methods. I agree there's sometimes the best, but it's not good that you should be subject to such things. And then Baron keeps calling him Shere Cousin.
Yeah, what is that?
I looked it up because I was confused too, because I don't know if the Baron and the Duke Leto are directly related like that. It could be, but in French it just means dear cousin. So it could be like a term of appreciation for like somebody in the Landsraad, like they were royalty. Like you would just say like family. They're cousins. They're both leaders of houses.
Yeah.
There's a familiarity there.
Yeah, that's what I assumed. But
yeah, I don't think they're but I mean, I'm sure that knowing the Bene Gesserit, all the noble houses are somewhat related.
Yep.
Like way back in the feudal system, medieval era. Everybody was related to everybody. All the kings and queens and princes were all cousins in some sort.
Right.
Probably something like that. But the Bene Gesserit will have it on a list somewhere.
Yeah.
They know who's related to who.
It's in a book in a library somewhere.
Somewhere. They got it. Piter keeps wanting to torture him because that's what Piter does best. But hey. We waste time, Baron, Piter said, because of course he wants to torture him. Perhaps. The Baron nodded. You know, my dear Leto, you'll tell us in the end where they are. There's a level of pain that that'll buy you. Leto thinks he's most likely correct, if not for the tooth, and the fact that I truly don't know where they are. So the Baron's feeling awkward. He picks up a sliver of meat and presses the morsel into his mouth, chewed slowly and swallowed. We must try a new track. He's bored eating at this point. He wants to move on, but he's just eats.
So gross.
It's pretty gross. All right, here it is. let's see, the frog sounds in the background had stopped. That was the Atreides men being tortured.
Right.
The Baron saw the captain of the guard appeared in the doorway across the room, shake his head. The captive hadn't produced the needed information. Another failure. This chapter is riddled with failures. Time to quit stalling with this fool Duke. This stupid, soft fool. He doesn't realize how much hell there was only so near to him, only a nerve's thickness away. This thought calmed the Baron, overcoming his reluctance to have a royal person subject to such pain. He saw himself suddenly as a surgeon, exercising endless, supple scissor dissections, cutting away the mask from fools, exposing the hell beneath. Rabbits, all of them. And how they cowered when they saw the carnivore. The theme of carnivore will pop up more and more again as we continue. And the idea of how the Baron thinks himself as this lynch key carnivore at the top of the food chain. So everything would fall apart without him. That's how he thinks about himself. I don't know if that's true, but that's how he thinks of himself.
Right.
Leto stared across the table, wondering why he waited. The tooth would end it all so quickly. Still, it had been good much of this life. He found himself remembering an antenna kite up-dangled in the shell blue sky of Caladan, and Paul laughing with the joy at the sight of it. Just picture Timothée Chalamet laughing. It just makes your heart happy. He remembered a sunrise here on Arrakis, covered with the strata of the shield wall mellowed by dust haze. I find it interesting that he has a memory of Caladan and also a memory of Arrakis, the two planets he lived on. Too bad, the Baron muttered. He pushed himself back from the table, stood up lightly in the suspensor and hesitated, seeing a change come over the Duke. He saw the man draw in a deep breath, the jawline stiffen, the ripple of the muscle there as the Duke clamped his mouth shut. How he fears me, the Baron thought. Shocked by fear, the Baron might escape him. Leto bit sharply on the capsule tooth, felt it break. He opened his mouth, expelling the biting vapor, as he could taste it as it formed on his tongue. The Baron grew smaller, a figure seen in a tightening tunnel. Leto heard a gasp behind his ear. The silky-voiced one, Piter. It got him too. Piter, what's wrong? The rumbling voice was far away. Leto sensed memories rolling in his mind. The old toothless mutterings of a hag, the room, the table, the Baron, the pair of terrified eyes, blue within blue, the eyes, all compressed around him in a ruined cemetery. There was a man with a boot-toed chin, a toy man falling. The toy man had a broken nose slanted to the left, an offbeat metronome caught forever in the start of an upward stroke. Whoa. That's a weird line. Whoa.
It is. It's very poetic.
Oh. That describes somebody's nose. Slanted to the left. Man. Leto heard the crash of crockery, so distant, a roaring in his ears. His mind was a bin without end, catching everything that had ever been, every shout, every whisper, every silence. One thought remained to him. Leto saw in his formless light in the rays of black. The day the flesh shapes, and the flesh the day shapes. The thought struck him with a sense of fullness he could never explain. And then silence.
There it is.
And thus ends the Duke. It happened. How do you feel, Evan?
Just such a bad way for such a good man to go out. You know? I mean...
Well, I'm glad he had control over it. Does that make sense?
Right. Yeah, but the fact that he kind of had to commit suicide. He had to suicide bomb this room, basically.
Yeah.
And that was this powerful righteous man's last action, like that just sucks. It's really sad, you know. That's how I feel anyway.
Do you think he got the Baron? We got Piter. We got a couple other guys.
Yeah, we clearly got some people. I guess we're about to find out.
Oh, okay, yeah. The Baron stood with his back against the private door, his own bolt hole behind the table. He slammed it on a room full of dead men.
No.
See, yeah. His senses took in the guard swarming around him. Did I breathe it in? He asked himself. Whatever was there, did it get me too? All right. So then the blowers come in because I'm sure the room was just filled with gas. So the blowers come in and like try to suck everything out.
Right.
And he could analyze it. His shield had been activated, but set to low. There was still enough slow molecular interchange across the field barrier, and he had been pushed himself away from the table. That and Piter's shocked gasp, which had brought the guard captain darting forward into his own doom. Chance and the warning and a dying man's gasp that had saved him. So if the Duke would have done like seconds before, because the Baron like gets up from the table.
Right. He had just like moved backwards, and that's, you know, I mean, he was tripping, so that makes sense. But man, just like a second earlier.
Yeah, 1 second earlier, this whole book would have been semi-different. But yeah. Well, now Piter's dead. The guard captain, which we, said at the very beginning of the chapter, is also now dead.
Yeah.
The Baron felt no gratitude for Piter. The fool had got himself killed, and the stupid guard captain. Like, who checked this guy? Right. No matter now, the Baron thought, his mind firming, the next guard captain will begin by finding the answers to all of these questions. He grew aware of more activity down the hall, around the corner, at the other door of the room of death. To that room of death, yeah. The Baron pushed himself away from his own door, studied the lackeys around him. And everyone stood there looking at the Baron. And the Baron realized only a few seconds had passed since his flight from that terrible room. Some of the guards had weapons leveled at the door. A man came striding around the corner, gas mask dangling by the straps at his neck, his eyes intent on the overhead poison snoopers that had lined this corridor. He had yellow hair, a flat face with green eyes. Crisp lines radiated from his thick-lipped mouth. He looked like a water creature misplaced among those who walked the land. The Baron stared at the approaching man and recalled his name, Nefud. Akin Nefud, guard corporal. Nefud was addicted to Sumta. It's a drug. The drug-music combination that played itself in the deepest consciousness. A useful information, that. The man stopped in front of the Baron and saluted. Corridor is clear, my lord. I was outside watching. I saw that it must be poison gas. Ventilators in your room were pulling in air from these corridors. He glanced up at the snooper over the Baron's head. None of the stuff escaped. We have the room cleaned out now. What are your orders? The Baron recognized the man's voice. The one who had been shouting orders. Efficient, this corporal. They're all dead in there, the Baron asked. Oh, they're all dead in there, the Baron asked? Yes, my lord. Well, we must adjust, the Baron thought. First, let me congratulate you, Nefud. You are now the new captain of my guard. And I hope you take to heart the lesson you learned from the fate of your predecessor. The Baron watched the awareness grow in this newly promoted guardsman. Nefud knew he'd never again be without his drug of choice. I just imagine also the drug. It's like a music consciousness, I just imagine somebody on ecstasy in a rave all the time in the back of your brain, just like.
That's fun. That's more fun than what I thought of.
What'd you think of?
I don't know, just like It wasn't explained very well. All they said was the drug music combination that put itself in the deepest consciousness. Like, I don't know. I was like, maybe it's like something you listen to, or like it's some kind of,
It's like
I don't know.
binaural beats that make you happy.
Yeah, like some weird type of like space drug that we can't really conceive of. That's kind of what I was thinking.
Yeah, there's a lot of drug references in this chapter. Frank knows what he's talking about. He's done something. I mean, come on.
Sounds like it.
He's got some experience in there.
Yeah, for sure.
All right. So the Baron then, he's outside, and all of a sudden up walks the Bashar, the Sardaukar Bashar.
Yes.
So the guy that was with Yui in our last chapter, who gave the Duke, found him, same guy.
Right.
So he comes in, and the Colonel Bashar came striding towards the Baron, whose eyes went to slits of apprehension. The Colonel Bashar planted himself half a pace in front of the Baron, hands on his hips. The guard hovered behind him in a twitching uncertainty. The Baron noted the absence of a salute, the disdain in the Sardaukar's manner, and his uneasiness grew. And he thinks, there's only one legion of them locally, 10 brigades enforcing the Harkonnen Legion. Remember, a legion is 30,000 people, or soldiers.
Yeah.
But the Baron did not fool himself. That one legion was perfectly capable of turning on the Harkonnens and overcoming them. Ooh. Tell your men they're not to prevent me from seeing you, Baron, the Sardaukar growled. My men brought you the Atreides Duke before I could... Oh, this is the Sardaukar. He says, my men brought you the Atreides Duke before I could discuss his fate with you. We will discuss it now. Whoops. He wants to talk about the Duke Guido.
Uh-oh.
And what his fate's going to be, but he's dead now, so this will be awkward.
Wah, wah.
The Sardaukar says, my emperor has charged me with making certain his royal cousin dies cleanly without agony. The Baron, such were the imperial orders to me. Do you think I'd disobey? I'm to report to my emperor what I see with my own eyes, the Sardaukar said. The Duke's already dead, the Baron snapped, and he waved a hand to dismiss the fellow. The Colonel Bashar remained planted facing the Baron. How? Really? The Baron thought. This is too much. Like, just get, go on, dude. By his own hand, if you must know. He took poison. I'll see the body now, the Colonel Bashar said. The Baron raised his gaze to the ceiling in a feigned exasperation. Both thoughts raced. Damnation. This sharp-eyed Sardaukar will see the room before things have been changed. Now, the Sardaukar growled, I'll see it with my own eyes. There's no preventing it, the Baron realized. The Sardaukar would see it. He knew that the Duke had killed Harkonnen men, and the Baron most likely had escaped by the narrow margin, and there was evidence of the dinner remnants on the table, and the dead Duke across from the destruction around him. No preventing it at all. I should not be put off, the Colonel Bashar snarled. You're not being put off, the Baron said, and he stared into the Sardakar's obsidian eyes. I hide nothing from my emperor. He nodded to Nefud. The Colonel Bashar is to see everything at once. Take him in by the door where you stood, Nefud. This way, sir. Insufferable, the Baron thought. Now the Emperor will know how I slipped up. He'll recognize it as a sign of weakness. And it was agonizing to realize the Emperor and a Sardaukar were alike in their disdain for weakness. The Baron chewed his lower lip, consoling himself that the Emperor at least had not learned that of the Atreides raid on Giedi Prime and the destruction of the Harkonnen spice stores there. I think I want to talk about, like, real fast, how at the beginning of the chapter, right, there's this idea of weakness and how a man is waiting. I think I had a quote them is what was it at the very end? The whole universe sat there open to a man who could make the right decisions, right? Failure was expendable. And this whole chapter, the Baron fails over and over and over and over and over again. And here it is, his like high and mightiness is now like, by the way, the Emperor knows you failed. Wah, wah, wah.
You can watch his attitude change slowly throughout the chapter as he gets more and more uncertain.
Yes,
Crazy.
about what's bad. Yeah, about what's happening. So the Baron thinks we must adjust, right? Because the original plan was to have Piter as the duchy, to which he would torture the people, and then Fade would come in. Now we're going to have to make the Beast Raban the duchy and have him do it, which the Beast Raban was already in charge of Arrakis, so not much will change. But it's just annoying. And we're also now without a Mentat. I must send at once to the Talax Zoo for a new Mentat. They undoubtedly have a new one ready for me by now. I almost want to think that Piter's part of me just imagined this as I was reading it last time, that like probably Piter only had like 3 missions, this being one of them. Like the other Mentat was killed and he was brought in and like, all right, I want you to do this one thing for me. Use all of your skills and I want Arrakis. And I think that's like, ugh. And just, yeah, as we were going through it, this chapter of like how much Piter knew and how much he'd set up for this, part of me wants to think it was like his only big mission. Because it probably had some years and years to set up. All right. One of the guardsmen beside him coughed. The Baron turned towards the man. What'd he say? I am hungry. Yes, my lord. And I wish to be diverted while you're cleaning out that room.
I'm hungry.
He studies its secrets for me. The guardsman lowered his eyes. What diversion does my lord wish? I'll be in my sleeping chambers, the Baron said. Bring me that young fellow we bought in Garmond, the one with the lovely eyes. Drug him well, I don't feel like wrestling. Yes, my lord. The Baron turned away, began moving with his bouncing, suspended buoyed pace towards his chambers. Yes, he thought, the one with the lovely eyes. The one who looks so much like the young Paul Atreides. Dun 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 dun. This ends chapter 21.
I'm so uncomfortable. That ending was like the yuckiest thing. And
it's all about
like,
power.
Again, we don't shame people over here except for man.
Yeah, it's completely
Just
about
yucky.
power for the Baron. There's nothing. Oh, gosh. Yeah. Nothing against anybody else. Yeah, I'm not trying to say that. It's just purely about power and manipulation. It doesn't matter how it looks or how it works. Power over people is bad.
Right. Sexuality aside. Yeah. Sexuality aside, the action of him buying a slave, like a sex slave, because they look like Paul, that's just like gross and just goes back to Big Baby just being a nasty, grosso, awful, terrible person.
Yeah, the Baron's the worst. Definitely the worst. But this chapter, I think, is almost humorous because he starts off so grandiose and by the end, just disappointment after disappointment and failure after failure. We just slowly see him lose his patience. And it's kind of funny to watch.
Yeah.
Well, that ends the chapter. We won't keep you much very longer. But we'd love to hear from you. Hit us up at Twitter, Reading Dune, Gmail, readingdune@gmail.com. We love to hear from you. We also love if you subscribed on YouTube. Hit that follow button on Spotify or whatever. Share with a friend. I mean, I learn about all my great podcasts from people who share it with me. Like when Evan says, hey, listen to this, I listen to it. So,
yeah,
please, we appreciate it. And thank you, as always, for reading Dune with us. And remember, stay spicy, my friends.
Yeah.
Evan, you're so
Spicy.
glitchy.